Live button. And we're live. Hey, folks, look at this wonderful chat that all these lovely people. And then not only that, but look at all the amazing people that I've managed to capture in magical boxes um, and force them to come celebrate Zevi's birthday. Today is Zevi's birthday, everybody.
Post
So we're here really. It was actually this is an entire plot just to celebrate Zevi's birthday, folks. Um, it's a surprise. But,
You got me. You got me.
but yeah, just I don't really have an agenda. I really just I think when we hit these milestones, when we can, we should get together and hang out and celebrate each other. And I thought if I can hang out with cool people, then if I can, I should. And so it was great that I just reached out to some folks on the emerging religion tube world, some of my dear friends and colleagues, and I'm sure folks, if you recognize Esoterica, you recognize Philip and Zevi and Dr. Puka from their respective channels. How is everybody? I know we kind of talked behind the
Behind the
veil,
scene.
behind the parochet in the
Mhm.
studio, but we're gonna go around. How is everybody? How are you? How's everyone doing? What are you working on? I just got back from the gym. I accidentally stay too long at the gym. So you should be
Accidentally.
glad that you don't have smell-o-vision because I'm um, um,
You're just bragging, Justin.
what'd you say, Philip?
You're just bragging.
Bragging about going to the gym? No,
Can you hear me properly still?
it's a
Yes.
little low, but yeah, um, put in my ears. Um, but yeah, Zebi, how's things going? What are you working on? What are you doing? How's life post
Being good.
study?
The post Yunoka, being good. Firstly, congratulations, Mazel Tov, Justin, for hitting 300,000. I think sometimes when we're in the making of the content and we're in the responding and in that mode, we don't get a chance to step back and be like, oh wow, like what an incredible achievement to be able to bring quality education and information to so many people for free. So firstly, as a fellow educator and content creator, a huge debt of appreciation and amongst the tribe, we wish people on when they reach celebration. So I wish you that the growth only continues and you continue to reach people and continue to feel fulfilled and meaningful and purposeful in that. And I get to bless you as the birthday boy. It's also part of my
True.
prerogative. So that's my blessing. I've been good. I've been frankly exhausted because I'm working on a whole separate project here with more of my hands than just my mind, which is nice. I think you can see my hands a bit torn up here from today, which is great. But in terms of the content, in terms of channel things and religious studies, Justin and I, as I'm sure many people here know, just finished a 9-part series on the Yunuka, a wonderful section of the Zohar, and we're gearing up to a celebratory conclusion of that, which we're very much looking forward to. We're doing a bit of a platform-wide philosophy collaboration, asking a bunch of philosophers, can philosophy provide meaning to another person? And one of the episodes was dedicated to the religious studies philosophy content creators, and I get to see the 3 beautiful people here that were part of that, which is very fun. Thank you guys as well for that. We get to be so deeply enmeshed in each other's work, which is really wonderful. Although we're working in isolation, we're working in deep interconnectivity as well, which is beautiful. And then editing a 13-part interview series with a specific group of scholars and one specific organization, academic, which I can't yet say who they are and what it is, but obviously mysticism and philosophy related, and I'm going through that and editing it, and very much looking forward to publishing that sometime in the near future.
Awesome. This is a great question from Andrew, a supporter of at least Angela and I's. What is a blessing and what are the theoretical basis for them? This is an interesting question. Like
it came up in the Zohar, right? The etymology.
It's the sort of the opposite of the evil eye, I would say. The evil eye is when you envy somebody and you attract bad luck to them. And, this is kind of the blessing is sort of the opposite. It's wishing somebody wholeheartedly with no hidden agenda or anything, that they flourish.
Yeah,
That's a beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting also, I guess, at least in the Jewish tradition, is that certain people have certain power to give certain blessings on certain days.
Right.
Like people having a birthday sometimes, but also like I think of the Kala,
Correct.
like on a bride on her wedding day has like incredible power. I think that's the most powerful, one of the most powerful blessings that one can get is from a bride on her wedding day. But yeah, I like the idea that it's like a knob. You can turn it up.
Hmm.
You can turn it up and down depending.
It's when the stars align for the person. The mazal.
Yeah, the mazal.
The stars are there.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know how they work.
The blessing, the bracha, we just learned in the Yanukkah together in the Zohar that the bracha is a breicha, it's a pull that we can like bring down some sort of energy into the world, and that is a theoretical basis, and whether that's operative in our contemporary metaphysics is a different question. And we can pull those blessings, and when we have a pull, we can share those blessings with others, and from a place of abundance, we can give and we can bless and we can share.
Yeah, and also we learned in the Zohar that if we try to bless before we're supposed to, we can curse on accident.
Right.
We can transfer them into a bama, into a site of idolatry. So that's an interesting. Don't accidentally curse people. God forbid.
I'm gonna be very rude, and I apologize profusely, and I apologize in advance before we went live. My mother threw me, God bless her, a surprise birthday party, and she scheduled it for 9 o'clock, and obviously, couldn't consult me really about my plans. So I have a bunch of very dear friends waiting to surprise me, and so I'm gonna have to bid farewell from one group of dear friends to another group of dear friends. But it's really an honor to be here alongside you, Justin, and looking forward of many sweet, happy, challenging, fruitful years together of educating and sharing and friendship. And the same goes for Dr. Puka, for Angela, and for Philip. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, Debbie. Happy birthday. And
happy birthday, and go have fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Go have fun, and definitely don't disappoint your mother. That sounds. Yeah. So, all right. Have a great evening. Happy birthday, L'chaim.
Bye.
I'll watch the rest of the live once I'm done here. I'll get to catch up.
Wonderful. See you later.
Love you guys.
Take it easy.
Bye.
See you later.
Angela, what are you working on? What are you up to these days? Like I mean.
Yeah, first of all, I also want to congratulate you for the 300K and for the birthday of the channel. And I also feel very lucky and blessed to be here and be sharing this platform and educating people alongside friends like you guys. So I wish your channel to grow even more, and for us to all collaborate together along the way. And as for me, I have a lecture at Harvard University on Tuesday. And other than my channel, I'm working on a book. I'm editing a book which is on Owen on paganism, published by Equinox. So we are collecting contributions from different professors and lecturers and putting them together. And Ronald Hutton is writing the foreword for the book. So it's coming up together quite nicely, and I have some contributions to write myself for the book. About there's an introductory piece on what is paganism and one on sex magic, and there are a few things that I have to write myself for the book. So I'm gonna work on that as well. And then I'm working with this new academic association that I will be talking more about in upcoming weeks, and especially my patrons will have a sneak peek, because there's this new academic association that tries to bridge the gap between academia and practitioners, and they have a dedicated platform. So I will have special code for my patrons when the platform and the website launches publicly. And
more secret projects.
Yeah, secret project. It will be publicly the association will be publicly launched in Sweden, by the way, Philip, in case you're coming, at the SW conference, the Conference of the European Society for the Study of Western Esotericism. There's gonna be the conference, the biannual conference in Malmo. Is that right pronunciation, by the way? I never know how to say it. Is it
Yeah, Malmö.
Malmö? Okay, in Malmö in Sweden. So we're gonna launch publicly there. We're gonna have a secret meeting in April in Italy, but it's been fun. It's fun, and I look forward to saying to being able to say more about it. And then in May, I'm going to Ireland with a couple of dear patrons of mine to see the Beltane fires, and it's gonna be really fun. Um, we plan on going to the Hill of Tara and Newgrange. So I look forward to that as well. I definitely need to bring my camera and take pictures and videos so that I can, show people and put up content for my symposium.
It's really incredible. I was there with summer when we were in Ireland. That's how I wrapped up the trip to Ireland, was going to Tara and Newgrange, and it was really, really. All of those sites are really, really impressive. It's really, yeah, that all sounds wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, definitely.
Philip, I haven't seen you in a while, man. How you been? How's life?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, first of all, just like, I mean, both Angela and Zevi have spoken very eloquently about your channel, and I just want to add to that and say that I'm just very happy to see that so many people realize what amazing work you're doing, and to see your channel continuing to grow is really, it makes me really happy. So congratulations, Justin.
Thanks, Philip. I appreciate that.
Definitely deserve it. Myself, I've been traveling a lot recently, actually.
Oh.
I was in Tunisia in January for 2 weeks. In Tunis, primarily in the capital, and then just 2 weeks ago I was in Spain, in Andalusia for a week. And so I've been sort of partly just vacation, but also gathering material. I've been filming a lot, getting a lot of great B-roll footage that I can use, and also just a lot of inspiration. Being in those places that I talk about so much, it helps. So I'm working on this weekend, actually. I just finished it today. I've been sort of putting together a documentary from my trip, or documentary adjacent video based on my footage from Tunisia. So it's going to be a video about the history of Sufi saints in Tunisia, basically. So that should
Yeah,
be
I saw your picture.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
so
that's really
it's an amazing trip, visiting the place where Abu Hassan al-Shadhili, the founder of the Shadhili order, would meditate in the cave, and the grave of Ibn Arabi's masters, and it was really incredible.
Yeah,
So
I'm really looking forward to that. I also appreciate there's a certain kind of interesting thing where, like, the fact that you referred to that area of Spain as Andalusia, like as if it's still Al-Andalus. I like the idea that the area, the parts of the time period that we study often just become overlaid as if they're still there.
right.
Like, I don't know, sometimes I've I don't know, like there, for some reason, I can't imagine when I was in Sfat in northern Israel, I can't imagine that not just being part of the Ottoman Empire. For whatever reason, it's just frozen to me in the 17th century, and it's like, yeah, we're in the Ottoman Empire. Like it doesn't strike me as a modern place at all. So it's like, yeah, the different places where I've been where it strikes me as like, oh yeah, we're not in, especially in Spain and some of these medieval cities like Girona and stuff. The medieval sections of those cities weren't destroyed in World War II, and so because World War II didn't really happen there in the same way, so it's just amazing that you really can walk down the same streets that Maimonides walked down.
Yeah,
they're still there and they haven't changed. It's really like mind-boggling.
it's
Of course,
amazing.
Angela's all too familiar with that, being from being from the Roman Empire.
Yes. You're reminding me that when I was a child in primary school, and I was just learning about history, I remember that I got so caught up in the history classes that when there was the lecture when they told us that the Roman Empire had fallen, I started crying and I just couldn't believe it. It's like, no, why? They were so powerful. So I just, it was just an emotional shock for me.
What every Italian goes through the moment they realize, like, hold on. It is funny, like being in contemporary Rome and seeing that the manhole covers, like the covers that go to the sewers, still have SPQR on them. Like I think they're from Mussolini period. They're still like Senatus Populusque Romanus. I'm like, I don't think that the Roman Senate put these manhole covers down. But I would like to believe that it would, like, I don't know. That's just funny to me that you still see SPQR on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just in Rome anyway.
Oh yeah, is it all over? Is it because they're all from the Mussolini period, right? None of those are like, are they from the later periods?
I'm not sure actually, because the ones I'm familiar with are from the from the Mussolini period. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if there are older ones.
or newer ones for that
Yeah,
matter. I'd be
or
curious
newer
to.
ones.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, I love again like the living in different layers of history all at once.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
always going to be Al-Andalus, like, to
yeah,
me.
yeah, because that's your the pocket universe, your mental universe.
But
And
also, while I was there and speaking to the people, we were buying olive oil, for example, and I asked them, like, "Is this locally produced in Spain?" He said, "Yes, in Andalusia." Like,
yeah, that's great. Yeah, like I guess it makes sense in that region. I mean, and it's funny for me, Spain, I typically associate with the war, and so like every time I'm in the few times I've been to Spain, I'm always thinking about the Civil War. So it's always like, oh yeah, like this is this part of Zaragoza is where the CNT-5 held out, and this is the Ramblas where they were instead of fighting the fascists, they were shooting each other because leftists would never infight. That's completely unimaginable. So yeah, I do like that that kind of again that layering of history. Um, yeah, I mean that's great, Philip. I'm looking forward to the. I mean, just like you have a background in film, and so I'm really, looking forward. You have the best combination of things. You're smart, you're passionate about religion, you have a background in film, and you're a musician. Like you're basically a walking studio. Um, you're a production company called Philip Home Productions. Um, and
You will be entertained and religiously educated all at the
yeah,
same time.
the same time, and like Philip has to outsource zero, like literally nothing to get his stuff. He can do everything in house. Even have a sound engineer living with you as
yep,
your wife. Like you've,
I'm not
I mean,
complaining.
yeah, it's a great outfit. Yeah, it's
Although sometimes I wish I could outsource some of the work, but
Mm.
yeah. I thought about that too, but I'm also yeah.
I'm a control
Sometimes
freak.
like some people are like, well, could you outsource some of your work? And I'm like, do you understand the weird things that I work on? Like, no one's going to understand how to go find pictures on the internet to describe some crazy Gnostic book that I'm studying.
That's exactly my issue too.
Like, if they had that
Mhm.
skill set, they'd be doing my job, or something. I don't know, or they should be. Yeah. So, um, but yeah,
And especially the editing stuff, because you gotta know all the stuff that you're talking about in order to be able to represent it properly in
yeah.
visual form.
It seems, yeah, and like knowing like like and it's also always not like a one-to-one relationship, right? Because you like want to like you have to know, I don't know, something about the um yeah, finding the art to certain kinds of things. Yeah, the modern hermeticist is in the chat. Dan, I don't know if you're around. I think you said you might be busy right now, but if you want to jump in, feel free. I don't know if you're busy or not, but yeah, I feel the same way. My default thing when I'm working on anything about Gnosticism or mysticism is just to like steal William Blake art.
Yep,
That's like my default. Like, if I
totally.
need to illustrate something in Gnosticism, I just use William Blake art, even though it has nothing to do with it, and it's like 2,000 years removed. Somehow it
So
manages to capture like Gnostic vibes. Um,
I do the same thing.
yeah, like how do you capture like emanations of invisible spirits in art? Like, you know, but yeah, I feel the same way. Like, or the active intellect or something. There's just no way to. There's no great pictures of any of that.
Mm.
And it's really especially challenging for my video next week because I'm doing an episode on the books of you, which are these Gnostic books that never get any credit, or they don't get the attention the other Gnostic books get, like the Gospel of Thomas or the Apocryphon of John or whatever. They don't get a lot of play. But what's fascinating about them is that they're the largest repository of magical signs from late antiquity in a book. That is to say, like outside of obviously outside of the Greek magical papyri, but they're the most detailed description of how these magical signs get used outside of the Greek magical papyri. And what's bad about that is that the manuscripts that they survive in, the Bruce Codex, is so badly faded that if you look at it, you can hardly even see the writing anymore. So I can't even like use manuscript images really for illustrating it. So
Are they translated, or are you?
yeah, they're translated. They're published, of course, by Brill. Which
Of
no
course.
shade, Dr. Puka. Not only are they only published by Brill, but they're even the only study on them, which is done by Aaron Evans, which is the only study done on them, is also published by Brill. So you got to double down on your Brill purchases to get access to the books of
So,
you.
I wouldn't I wouldn't complain too much about Brill since it has put up so much interesting
It's
stuff.
great stuff.
Oh
on
yeah,
it.
yeah. The mafia definitely also provides a lot of people protection and yeah, oh yeah. All kinds of things are very effective at what they do. I'm thankful for the protection that my local, mob boss provides me at a very low cost. Just like I'm very thankful for the knowledge I get from Brill. Yeah, it's yeah. Again,
Did I
I'm
tell
only
you when I was going to a bar with my friend Per Faxnell, a great scholar of
yeah.
esotericism here in Sweden, and we were going inside the place, and he wasn't allowed to bring his bag inside.
Mm.
He was like, "No, I'm leaving." I was like, "Why?" Well, there are Brill books in the bag. I can't can't leave the bag.
Yeah, you mean it's worth more than they may be worth more than the bar.
Exactly.
Certainly, I mean, drinks in Sweden are expensive, but not Brill expensive.
True.
You guys have
Yeah.
great aquavit there, which is yeah. I know that Philip, you don't drink. But you guys have a unique kind of herbal liquor there, aquavit, which is the Icelanders have it too. It tastes like Viking mouthwash, in my opinion. I mean, no, but it is. I got to try some when I was there.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, sure. It's an acquired taste like everything, but yeah, it was good. I was like, had some in what is the old town? Well, the old part of Stockholm, Gamlastan.
Mhm.
Yeah, after the
Just means Old Town.
yeah, Old Town. Went to seeing the Vasa Museum, which I'm sure you've been there, right, Philip, to the Vasa Museum?
Yeah, it was 20 years ago, but yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was really like blown away by that. It's like a completely. Have you ever seen the Vasa Museum, Angela?
No.
It's like we should go there when we're in Stockholm if we have time. It's like just an amazing. It's like a perfectly preserved 17th century ship.
It's really cool.
It's
The
really
monuments
cool.
are complete embarrassment.
Yeah,
Disaster, but yeah.
yeah. I think the most incredible thing they pulled out of it was they found a skull that still had the brain preserved in it.
Oh,
It was
wow.
like it was that well preserved. Like it's kind of macabre, but it is just like it is really, really amazing. Just how well preserved the ship was. Looks like something out of the Goonies, but it is amazing.
It's really big too.
Yeah, it's huge. I do also like the fact that their only reason it's preserved was because it sank immediately literally the day that it was launched.
Yeah.
Everyone watched it sank, including the king.
Oh, wow.
And they like there was like people repeatedly warning the shipmasters, like, this thing is gonna sink. They
Yeah.
even tested it the day before and it like lilted, or yeah, I think that's the right word. And they're like, we should not do this. This thing is gonna sink. And they launched it, it sank.
immediately. Yeah.
Immediately. Yeah, it was like within half an hour, like within the eyesight of everyone.
Mhm.
It didn't have the common decency to think, outside of the sight of the crowds or whatever. I love stuff like that. I mean, I don't like it because a bunch of people died, but it's funny that history, it's just like the arrogance of people. It's just never ending. And it's like has these kind of funny instances. But I'm looking forward to seeing both of you guys in Sweden. It'll be great to hang out.
Are
gonna
you
be-
coming to the ESWI conference, Philip?
Yes,
Mm.
that's my plan.
It'll be so great. Can all hang out and do Swedish things.
Philip, you will teach us how to do Swedish things.
You just avoid people and don't talk.
This is really sounding good.
This is sounding very English.
We have that in common, I think.
Yeah,
have to
probably
learn.
the norther you go, the
Yeah.
worse it gets in terms of human interaction.
Oh yeah, you go really far. Go to Svalbard, and then no one talks to any. It's illegal to talk to people. You can only talk to polar bears. Which is a cool place, Svalbard. That's like it's a cool island up there.
Never been.
Yeah, it's I got as close as like I went to as far north as like Tromsø, like way north in Norway to see the Northern Lights once, and that was really really amazing. Like it's really strange when the sky has depth. Like we see it, it's kind of a flat dome most of the time, but when it like unless there's clouds or something, but it's weird when it like there's depth to it because of the Northern Lights. It's a very strange feeling. Like I don't know what the right word for it is. Like vertigo. Like what's that feeling? What's that the thing they do in movies where they can like pull the camera so that the background stretches back?
Right.
What is that? I don't know what that effect's called, but that's what it feels like when you see the Northern. Well, I saw the Northern Lights.
I've never been well, I've been to the north of Sweden, but never in Northern Lights seasons. I've never seen a proper Northern Light.
They're pretty
so to
impressive.
But there was one time when there was a slight hint even here in Stockholm, and just that was really beautiful a few years ago.
When we were in Iceland, they actually like not long after we left, they had they announced like on the radio and the news that everyone had to turn their lights off in their house in Reykjavik, so because the Northern Lights as like a public service to everyone else. And so like they were like you have to like black out your curtains so that everyone can see the Northern Lights really well. So that was nice. Like it's an interesting kind of thing in that regard.
I can see lots of questions on ChatGPT, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I've used it for video titles.
Have you used it for video titles?
Yeah.
Is it? Do you find it to perform well?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty smart. It's whatever that is.
Yeah, but I wouldn't trust. I saw that some people were wondering whether it gives you references, and that was the first thing that I tried on ChatGPT. When it gives you information, then I ask what are the sources. Obviously, being me and being obsessed with the references. And in the beginning, it was just saying I'm an AI and I collect information of the internet more very generically. Now it gives you references and they look like legit academic references. And I don't know if it is because now ChatGPT. No, they aren't. That's the thing.
They aren't?
Because I checked them and they are basically a collage of different academic references. So they look legit. So when you look at them, it looks like a proper Harvard or Chicago style reference of an academic source from a journal or a peer-reviewed book. But then when you go and look them up, most of them don't exist. Sometimes the author doesn't exist, or sometimes it's bizarre. So I think that it creates a collage of different things that are somewhat associated on the internet. Because, for instance, there were references that seemed legit because I think that I was asking something about Aradia because I did a video on that, and it was giving me references about Sambina Mayoko, and that that makes sense because she has written about it, and I also mentioned that paper, but the paper was not correct. So the name of the scholar was correct, but the name of the paper and the journal was not correct. And sometimes that happens. So either you get the title that is right, or and the author that is wrong. And also, I think another question, it told me that Micheliade was a French scholar. No. No.
Yeah, no,
So I
it's
wouldn't,
pretty
I think that,
Romanian.
yeah, Romanian. So I think that ChatGPT can be super useful, but you have to know your stuff already. So if you
Yeah.
already know things, because that cannot be your source. And I always insist on academic sources, and also primary sources, but you have to know your sources. And once you have the information and you know your stuff, then you can use ChatGPT as an assistant. Like, I think it's useful to help you create a layout for something that you want to talk about, or titles, as Philip said. But and it gives you also plenty of information. It's just that I personally wouldn't trust the information unless you already know it and you can verify everything that it's saying. But because there are lots of things that are correct, but there are also things that are not correct. So it would be like a source of embarrassment if you were to just take it at face value, and that's your primary source of information. I wouldn't advise that.
No, and not yet. But I think as it gets smarter and smarter, and as it gets better and
Yeah.
better, like learning data, and I mean, even with like really crappy ways of learning, like Monte Carlo tables and stuff like that, like I do think that, I mean, it seems to me reasonable to believe that within a decade or so, it will be producing, um, like it'll replace it in the same way that professional translation is basically not a thing anymore. Like a lot of professional translation is like machine translation being checked by professional translators. I think that that's what will happen to a great deal of academic production. I don't think that if for people who aren't scared of it taking their job, they're fools. Like it is it is the loom. It
So
is the loom.
are you scared that esoterica won't exist anymore because an AI will substitute you?
I think eventually it will and should, because computers are more reliable than people. People are terribly unreliable. Um, I think that I think that 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 non-niche scholarship will be replaced by AI. So I think it will. Oh yeah, I'm fairly confident it will, and I think that's great because I think that academia needs to be purified through basically having the cage shook and a lot of it falling apart, because most of it is producing non-knowledge. I think I think a lot of it's producing non-knowledge, and
What do you mean?
I think it's just like scholastic, like the amount of jargon-filled continental philosophy papers that I've read that are just rearranged. It's like shuffling the deck of 30 jargon words without producing anything of any interest, and still getting published in journals all the time. I mean, stuff gets published in philosophy journals that are literally made up like nonsense as a joke. Even peer-reviewed journals. I mean, the Sokol affair is the tip of the iceberg, and then we have the huge non-reproducibility problem. That's like a big problem in psychology and other things because something's going wrong there. And so, yeah, I think that
I'm in religious studies, and I can say that in religious studies, there's a lot of research that gets published, like actual important research on things that has never been studied before. So I'm personally a big fan of academia, and I can say that in religious studies, there's plenty of research that is being done
but I
every
think that
day to.
but I think AI can do it faster, better. I mean, I think like I said, I'm not a humanist. I don't trust people. I think that in the same way we can the same way that people said, oh, the loom is going to be the end of civilization because it'll put the weavers out of business. I'm like, yeah, it sucks for the weavers, but and they tried to stop it. I mean, that's where the word sabotage comes from, throwing their wooden sabots, their shoes, their clogs, where we get the word clog from, throwing them into the looms to try to stop the tide of what was coming. But the tide is coming, and the more that we yeah, the more that we think that sitting in a library mining books for new knowledge is the end all be all of what academia will look like, that is the those are the people who will be replaced first. It is not a bad
I
thing.
disagree.
Not a bad thing at all.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think that AI is gonna substitute human beings. I think that it's just going to be more a collaborative effort.
It won't completely replace us. I mean, not yet. In a couple hundred years, it will. But I think that within our lifetime, we'll see production of new knowledge with AI that is like superior to what humans can do, faster and superior to what human scholars can do. It won't be. I don't think it won't be quite good at really highly technical, specialized things, but um, but I think it will. I think it will get as good as it will get better than people imagine it will be. I mean, Chat GPT, just as a, it's in its infancy. It's a completely new, it's a baby of a program, not even a baby. And the fact that it can churn out undergraduate level and even graduate level papers, like the amount of students that successfully cheated at the graduate level last semester, from pedagogy journals, mind-boggling. Mind-boggling the amount of people that admitted cheating using it and weren't detected and passed. They got advanced degrees.
That couldn't happen in Italy because the way students get assessed is completely different than in the US and in the UK. So you don't submit a paper at home. You have to you have to do an exam. So you are in a place with nothing. You don't have your phone, you don't have your computer, you don't have books, you don't have anything other than yourself and the knowledge that you have memorized, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean that may be one. I mean that may be a way of keeping some degrees of academia, solid, but I mean that's also a very old school pedagogical system that's basically I think rarely used outside of. I mean, not much used other places. But I mean, it's amazing. Harvard Business School and also like several chemistry programs, like they polled their students and like 80% said they used it in past classes. So that means people are getting advanced degrees using AI already. Like that it's not the question is not, is it coming? It's here. And then the question is like, again, if the loom is coming, what do the weavers do? You need to find a way to live with the loom. And we have to find a way to live with it.
I think that things change, but yeah, it's not a matter of avoiding it. It's a matter of realizing how to reassess things in a way that accommodates the new changes in society and technology.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the day that AI replaces me.
What will you do when Esoterica will be made by an AI?
Oh, save enough money to go live in the forest, far away from all this.
So do you not enjoy doing this then?
Oh, it's a great job, but yeah, when I get replaced by the machines, then let's go to the forest and like Heidegger, just like live in the mountains and write books about being. And they won't be nearly as good as the AI books about being. No, what do you think, Philip? How do you feel about about AI, or at least the Chat GPT stuff?
I don't know. I think it's so far it's very useful for I mean, like you said, I wouldn't trust it to write a script for me, right? But for coming up with titles, it's really smart with that stuff. Or not just the Chat GPT thing, but also I've been using AI imagery also, but also in the form of inspiration. So I've sort of given them a prompt. I released a song, for example, in December called "The Floating Man," and the cover art for that song started out as an AI generated image, and then I went in and sort of adjusted it. But it was a good way to have somewhere to start, and then I could sort of use my creativity to make it my own. So for that, I think it's very useful, but I try not to use it too much because I still want control over the content that I'm making.
It'd be an interesting experiment if all of us are, if we did, all of us did a video on the same topic, but one of us did a chat GPT script.
Yeah.
And then shot the video using the script, but not telling our audience which of us had the AI script. And we have to pick something that it'd be an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
And just see how people react. And like, it's sort of like the what is the Turing problem, right? That if people don't know the difference, if the public can't tell the difference, then there's the problem becomes very stark. It'd be a fun experiment. I mean, I don't like the idea of experimenting on our audience, but I think that would be actually part of me thought about doing an April Fool's Day joke where I actually do that. Just have a something on Alistair Crowley or something, and it would just be completely generated by ChatGPT, and the joke would be had nothing to do with this. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's now I want to do it, but now I've let the cat out of the bag.
It is very smart. I mean, I saw someone give it, like ChatGPT, give it the prompt to summarize the philosophy of Ibn Arabi, and it did like a surprisingly good job of summarizing that stuff, which was almost scary because it's kind of a relatively obscure topic, but just knew exactly what to do.
Yeah, and that's again, I think when I looked at it, I asked it questions around. Like I tried to go some really boilerplate stuff, but also some like really specific stuff, like the philosophy of Guattari, which is a pretty obscure philosopher on his own, and it did poorly at that. I would say it probably performed like a D. I'd probably give that paper a D. But if I threw questions like on Kant, like on the categorical imperative, it's fine. I mean, it certainly understood the categorical. Certainly understood the. Even asked you questions like, would Kant allow you to like be cruel to animals? Because famously Kant doesn't care about animals. He's like, you have no moral obligations to animals. The moral obligation of Kantian ethics is completely asymmetrical, and it knew that, and it also knew that Kant also said that you shouldn't do it. But you shouldn't do it because the animals deserve moral recognition. That would be a philosophical failure. It's because you have a moral obligation not to be cruel, and the object of that cruelty doesn't matter for Kant, and it knew that. And that's a pretty subtle distinction. Like I think Kant only makes once in a footnote or something in the second critique. So I was like, that's smart. That's the distinction that most undergraduates don't pick up on.
Have any of you tried to get it to give you quotes? Like if I were to, give me a quote by Kant about this topic.
I tried to give me quotes. The questions that I asked were about peer-reviewed stuff, and it didn't perform that well in my case. So for instance, I asked to give me quotations from inspirational quotations or just quotations from a specific book, which is reasonably known. It was a book from Ronald Hutton, and it gave me a series of quotations, but then I went and checked in the book whether they were there, and they were not there. So I think when it comes to peer review stuff, doesn't perform that well.
Yeah, I think it's less peer-reviewed stuff, but more stuff that
it's in the public domain.
Yeah, it has to be able to crawl the data, and so a lot of books just aren't crawlable, not legally at least. So I think it's more the question of whether or not if it's crawlable, then if it can crawl,
it could be that over time we will get more educated about academic scholarship as well.
Yeah,
but I think it can definitely be used in many ways. ChatGPT, I find it very useful. It's just that I wouldn't trust it as a source, as the primary source of information. I think that you can use it once you already know the things that so you can ask it to summarize things for you or to give you like bullet points about something, but you have to give proper instructions, and to do that you already need to know what you're asking about. So that's the thing. I think it's not a good first source of information. It's more
Right.
like something that can aid you once you already know the things that you need to know. At
Yeah.
least for the things that we do, I think, and at least now we
Right.
don't know how it's going to develop in the future.
Yeah, and it'll develop. I mean, logarithmically. That's the promise and threat of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I remember when I was pretty avid Go player back in the day, and AlphaGo came out, and watching AlphaGo beat humans, which was like 5 years ago, people said that was impossible, that a computer would never be able to beat a human being. It just was not a thing. Like in the early 2000s, and everyone was saying, Go is the land, it's computationally impossible. And then they did it. And I remember when watching the game, rewatching the game, and the way that the machine moved was so unusual that I couldn't follow it. It was well beyond my ability to understand it. All professional games are like that, really. But then that was the moment I was like, all right, this is, there are no last holdouts. Although a human did beat AlphaGo recently again, so we're temporarily back on top. But only, it's interesting because they studied how it was winning, and they realized that it had a weakness, and they exploited the weakness and was able to beat the machine again. But I don't know. I'm very excited about all that stuff. I don't know. I have um, I don't know. There's this weird humanist impulse I think people have to be worried about this stuff. And for me, I'm like, no, anything that can liberate us from having to do work, including thinking, it's all for the better.
Mm.
um,
I'm also in favor of technology and general changes in life. But I don't have your cynic approach, and in terms of, oh yeah, the AI will do things in my place. I see it more as things that will change, and there will be a metamorphosis, and human beings will adapt to that and grow with that because of that. So I don't see that as AI substituting us. I don't think that's ever going to happen, to be fair.
I mean, that's what I'm sure that all the people weaving thought the loom would never replace them either. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
but the loom was not replacing the people. It was replacing an action that people were doing. That's not the same thing.
like writing papers and getting them published and writing books.
Yeah, but
And
that's not you as a person. That's something that you do. So the AI can do something that you do, and it will do it in its own way, which is different from what you do it. And it is possible that there are things that the AI will do in our place, but that doesn't mean that we will be annihilated. I think that we will probably develop in a way or evolve in a way that will make us do other things. Just like now we are not washing clothes by hands, but we are occupying our time with other things. We will probably occupy our time with other things, but it's not going to substitute us as human
oh
beings.
no, it'll just mean that I think it will mean that a profession will vanish, or a big
Yeah,
chunk of a profession
professions.
will vanish.
I think
And like
professions always die, and you
right,
always have new professions and professions that just disappear.
academia is a pretty old profession. Like, and thinking back to the foundation of the University of Bologna and the University of Paris, like these are institutions that are really really ancient. And I think you ask most academics, could machines replace what you do? They're going to tell you no. Like because the academics are trained to mean they're smart and special and stuff. Um, and smart and special people, never believe that they're the ones who could be on the chopping block. But um, that I think academia has not adapted sufficiently. I mean, it really hasn't adapted in hundreds of years, and the world has changed. And that I think the fact that it is not adapted, the fact that like academics still look down their nose at YouTube, tells me that they're behind the times. That the ship has sailed, and they're polishing the brass on the Titanic. And until they realize that and begin to turn their ship around, which I think they can't, I think the institutions are so fossilized that there's very little possibility for them to do that. I think a big chunk of the institution will go away.
Oh, you know that you and I have different views on academia, like on everything. And I think that there's some criticism that has to be made on academia and its fields and universities, but I still find that universities are quite valuable in the way they produce knowledge and deliver knowledge. And obviously, it depends also on the field, and it depends on the place and the university and the country. But generally speaking, I still think that universities are at the moment essential for the knowledge production. I mean, we are on YouTube, and I think that YouTube is important, and delivering knowledge on YouTube is essential, I think, because people will look up things on YouTube, not on a peer-reviewed academic journal. But at the same time, also the knowledge that scholars produce, and they do it out of passion. Academics don't earn huge wages, and they have to struggle a lot to get their masters and PhDs and the postdoc, and academics go through hell basically. So it's very clear that they do that out of passion primarily, and I think I really value that, and I really admire that. And I think that I still believe that peer-reviewed material is quite essential if you want to gather accurate information about something. It's not the same as just reading a primary source written by somebody. You don't have the same amount of rigor, the same type of methodology, the same curation on the analysis of the data. You just don't have all of that, all of the training that you have to go through to become an academic and be an academic and publish in peer-reviewed journals. It just allows you to think in a very specific way that at the moment ChatGPT cannot do in your place. It can give you information, it cannot produce information. Academics don't just deliver information. Academics also produce knowledge with research, by using proper methodology, by interacting and working with other scholars. So that's invaluable, I think. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
yeah.
if in it. Yeah.
I agree with all that, and it's and it I think it's a cartel run by very powerful people who make academics' lives hell by forcing them into a system of publishing or perishing, who artificially control who gets into the market, um, by rapidly producing more PhDs than can possibly get jobs. I mean, it's a deeply flawed system as much as it is an invaluable one. And again, my criticism is not that the system should be um, it should be abolished or something like that, but it should be overcome. There should be an Aufhebung of the academy, that we need to sublate it, that the institutions as it exists now are no longer functioning in a contemporary way, and that insofar as they continue to dysfunction, then it as an institution is going to be in need of significant overhaul, radical overhaul, because it's basically a medieval institution functioning in the 21st century. That's effectively an intellectual cartel. Um, that's not a sustainable system or an ethical one. I mean, and so I think that it's great in that it does what it does, but it holds on to these medieval ideas of pedigree and careerism and professionalization, and this very guild-like system and these fiefdoms of knowledge, and the system of tenure that is completely bizarre. It needs to be modernized, and the fact that it's so resistant to being modernized and overhauled only means that it's going to be doomed that much faster. That the systems that will come in the wake of it. And it was amazing watching. I mean, of course, I had a bit of glee watching the horror on the faces of all the people when ChatGPT dropped. And I was like, if you're horrified by it, then you're part of the problem. Like if it causes you anxiety, that means that if you can be replaced by artificial intelligence, you're probably not. Like, it just seems to me. And the people that are worried about it are like the middle management, the bureaucrats of this intellectual cartel. And I have very little sympathy for institutions who gatekeep and who have, especially in North America, now gouging people for hundreds of thousands of dollars to give them degrees they can do nothing with promises of all kinds of things. That's immoral, and the system needs to go. I mean, either needs to adapt and reform, or it needs to go. And I think that ChatGPT or like artificial intelligence will be part of the process by which it is sublated. So yeah, that's I'm not. I think that it is an invaluable and a necessary social function, but it's a desperate need of a revolution, and how it produces knowledge, because the knowledge isn't accessible. It's hyper exploitative. I mean, graduate students are treated like crap in mass to produce this stuff, all with the carrot and the stick of some job somewhere that doesn't exist. I mean, it boggles my mind that it can still exist. And it can still function the way that it does. And that, like, yeah, it boggles my mind. But Philip, any thoughts on the academy? As a person who's scholar but para academic in that way, what are your thinking on it?
I have my issues with academia for some of the reasons that you've just mentioned, but I also agree with Angela that the basic function of what academics do and the methodologies that we use are essential for providing or for doing science and gaining knowledge that is trustworthy. And I think we should be careful not to treat that too lightly, and to not try to be very careful to protect that, even though I think many aspects of academia might need, well, it would be good for it to go through some change, like you say, but I think we should be careful not to let go of that essential core of what academia does, which is very important and valuable.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that knowledge production and reliable knowledge production definitely needs to be happening. But yes, my worry is that it needs to not be happening under the aegis of an intellectual cartel. That needs to change.
I don't think there is an intellectual cartel, but we disagree on that. That's fine.
Tell the graduate students making $18,000 a year with no health care.
Oh, believe me, I know that. I know that from personal experience, but that just doesn't make me have that, that view of academia more generally. I know all too well what it means to be exploited by academia.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that academia doesn't need to change. It does. And at the moment in the UK, there's a massive strike that has been going on for months with the UCU. So it's not like I don't think that academia needs to change, but to call it a cartel, it's way too much in my opinion. I still think that you can be as clever as you want, but you do need a network system of other scientists and other academics that are trained properly and don't just claim to be clever. So I don't think there is a cartel, and honestly, I don't think there is gatekeeping either. I think, at least my experience there are some cases where that can happen, and that may depend on the country. Like in Italy, for instance, I had problems because just my discipline and studying paganism in the contemporary world was really not a thing. Just now they are starting to open up to that kind of topic of study in academia. But here in the UK, I've had more problems with non-academics in universities than I've had with academics, to be fair. Academics in religious studies have always been very supportive, even older scholars. They are very supportive, very welcoming. It doesn't mean that they will give you a job, obviously, because that's not their job. But when you are trying to learn new things and do research and acquire new methodology, they're very open to teaching you things and to welcoming you in their circles, unless, I don't know, you are, I don't know. My experience was positive, to be fair. I've had negative experiences with other sides of academia that don't have to do with colleagues, but have a lot to do with manager, for instance, and other people that work in universities that deal more with the financial and organizational matters, but that's a completely different topic. I don't consider them academics. They are still part of the academic system, and they deteriorated, especially here in the UK, quite a lot actually. But the academics that I know and that I've come in contact with, they are really passionate about their job. I don't see them as a cartel. I don't see them as gatekeeping. I just see them as people that are so passionate that had to endure all of that and to be in the place they are. And they are brilliant at their job. They produce incredible knowledge. And yes, I think that knowledge that is peer reviewed is more accurate because it has to go through a process and a certain methodology and data collection and data analysis that other stuff that is not peer reviewed doesn't. Does it mean that the peer review is perfect? No, but we are not here to think in black and white, are we? So when things need improvement, it doesn't mean that they are bad or they need to be destroyed. It just means that they need to change in those very specific things that present the problem, not in its entirety. So
I mean, I
that's
would
what
say
I
that
think.
for the intellectual proletariat or intellectual proletarians out there, certainly I'm on their team. But as institutions, I think they're cartels. I mean, I think they qualify as. I mean, like they qualify as institutions. Like if I were to look at any other type of production, looking at just any form of production, whether it's selling drugs or making steel, I mean, basically, a cartel comes down to the ability to control the market. And for knowledge production, the university is that they're a monopoly. So they're worse than a cartel in that way. And as an institution, they use force to do that. They use hyper exploitation and other kinds of mechanisms by which to achieve it. So again, there are intellectual proletarians out there, people who are laboring in the esoterica mines. I totally want them and support them. But the managerial class, the bureaucrats, the administrators who make hundreds of thousands of dollars in this country, and the layers of them, I mean, it's boggling. And all the while they're adjunct professors of English in California sleeping in their cars because they can't even afford housing, even though they're teaching at these at Berkeley or whatever. I mean, that's a totally upside down system. So yeah, I'm not opposed to academics. I'm opposed to institutions. And those institutions, I think, are deeply flawed and getting worse. I mean, in the U.S., I can only speak from the situation here in the U.S. It's certainly much better in Europe, but in the U.S., I mean, it's really out of control. I mean, basically everyone going into undergraduate, is getting $100,000 in debt. I mean,
That's bad.
it's nightmarish.
In Italy, you can literally go for university and not pay anything if you are of low income and you have good grades. But the problem is that I personally think, maybe some people would hate me for that, but I personally think that university in Italy is much harder compared to at least what I've seen from UK universities. In the UK, students had to pay much more. I think it's 9 grand, but it depends on the university. There are universities that charge much more than that. But students are very helped and assisted throughout the process of getting a degree, whereas in Italy you're just left to your own device and you just have a ton of exams that you have to do, and it's just your own problem if you go to the lectures or you don't go to the lectures, if you pass the exam or you don't pass the exam. Nobody is going to care if you never step into a classroom, or if you don't complete your exams and you just have to drop out. Nobody cares. Nobody will call you. Whereas here in the UK, there's a level of, at least in my experience, a level of student assistance that is impressive. So there are ups and downs, I guess.
How is it in
I would have
Sweden?
liked to have a bit more help when I was doing my degrees in Italy, but at the same time, I was able to do my degrees. Had I been born in the US, I wouldn't have been able to if I was born from the same family.
Or you'd have done it because I did it, and you'd just be massively, and you would either get in some degree of indigency scholarships and just be in debt forever. Like, between healthcare, the lack of healthcare in this country, and the education system, if you have one major medical emergency in your life and you go to college, you will be basically, it's like a life tax. You're just in debt forever. So in the US, everyone pays like a life tax, and most people have at least one medical emergency, and that means that you're going to be in debt for that forever. And then on top of that, school, and of course, the debt comes with school is compounding in interest, and it's incredible. It's an incredible system. It's one of the greatest scams ever perpetuated on a civilization in history.
That's unfair. I think that education and healthcare should be public and should be free and should come out of the taxes. That's what I think.
That sounds like scary socialism, Angela. Don't come over here.
Well, it's pretty much it's pretty much what happens in Italy. We have public healthcare, even though the Brexiters here in the UK said that us EU citizens were coming here because of their free healthcare. Well, get educated because there are other countries in Europe that have that. But anyway, don't let me started on Brexiters, because that's another massive chapter. But yeah, I think that education and healthcare should be free, or they should be. For instance, in Italy with healthcare is public, and there are some things that are free and other things that you have something to pay that is called a ticket, and it depends on your income. So depending on your income, you will pay a certain amount, but it's not the crazy amounts that you find in private healthcare here in the UK, and let alone in the US. So it is still something that is doable. And in Italy, it's not common to go in debt to to get cured from something, or to get an education. It's not a thing. So that's why, to me, it's like when I think about the US, I just think I would have never gone to university. I didn't really think about the debt thing, because it's not something that is part of the culture, if that makes sense.
It's so strange. I mean, here in Sweden, they pay us to study at university, basically.
So
They are better than all of us.
I always tell people, if you believe that human nature is inviolate, some people say that human nature can't change. I always point to Scandinavia. Scandinavia is like famous for like two things: social democracy and Vikings. And in the space of 1,000 years, that culture went from like raiding for fun and killing monks as sport, to like social democracy.
Stock religion.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is the human nature. There's nothing inviolate of human nature. I'll give you a funny story about healthcare in this country. So I had a girlfriend many years ago who went to medical school, and she became a doctor. And in one of her medical classes, they were learning to stitch, using an orange. They're learning to stitch on an orange. And of course, because I'm a complete nerd, every time she would be at her medical school classes in the summer, I would just go to them and sit in them, because I mean, who doesn't want to learn all kinds of weird stuff? At any rate, on the stitch day, I got to learn how to stitch a wound up, right? Well, on the orange, like everyone else. And so I learned this weird like skill. Turns out you can buy stitch kits just like on eBay. You can just buy them. The point of the story is this: when I was living in Memphis as a graduate student, most of my friends worked in the service industry. They worked in restaurants and stuff. And a pretty common thing between being badly burned in restaurants is also cutting yourself, like pretty badly cutting yourself, because they're working with knives and stuff. And it got out that I knew how to like stitch people up, and so I got a steady stream of people having me stitch them up, because it was cheaper for me to do it than it was for them to go to like an actual healthcare place. That's how sketchy it gets. You have some random philosophy graduate student that you met in a bar stitching you up after you cut yourself at your restaurant, because you can't go to get it done at an actual like healthcare professional. That is how crazy this country is. Like it's those little windows into America where I'm like I'm reading Hegel and stitching up Mike from the pizza place. The insanity of my country. My country, 'tis of thee. Not that it's all bad, but modern method. That sounds trad. Yeah, you're not really trad unless you're stitching up your comrades, and it's nuts. Nuts. Yeah, I'm gonna go back one day and go to be in medical school. The robots will get us there too.
That's true.
Yeah, that's one thing that I hope AI will will do in place of human beings.
It is cool. That did you guys see the AI robot like stitch up, like actual do stitching? It was pretty impressive.
No.
I follow this stuff. I just like I don't know. I get a kind of glee from it. I get a kind of glee from it. But I'm looking forward to being in back in Europe for visits. Philip, what are some things we need to do while we're there in Sweden, like to get the
Yeah,
full Swedish experience?
I've only been to Malmö once, and that was also like 20 years ago. But if you want to come to Stockholm, we can. There are a bunch of museums here, like the Vasa Museum. There's
Yeah, we
beautiful.
can all meet up in Stockholm.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Or do you know if there are any runestones between Stockholm and Malmö?
There are runestones around. I've been meaning to look up where they're located so I can shoot a video about Norse religion soon.
Yeah,
during
that'd
the
be cool.
spring. Yeah. So
Yeah,
by
I'd
the
love
summer,
to.
I probably know a bunch of runestones I can show
Yeah, I'd
you
love to
around.
go see them. Like one of my favorite things to see in the Netherlands are the Hunebedden, or like the Neolithic passage tombs, like the one in they're of course a little compared to what's in in Ireland. But I always like that it's always interesting to me that in Europe there were all these peoples that came there and they left these weird archaeological traces, but we don't know anything about, or we know very little about them. Like for the people who built, one of the cool things I learned is that at Newgrange, they cremated, they stored cremated remains in there, and one of the cremated remains had a tooth, and the tooth was so well preserved because the place has been watertight for whatever, ever how many years, thousands of years, 5,000 years it's existed, 5,500 or whatever, that they were able to extract DNA from the tooth that they found, and the tooth contained DNA more typical of Turkic people.
Mhm.
And it's so incredible. Like I forget what haplogroup it was that they found that tooth belonged to. Just incredible to think that there were like Turkic people building these giant like tomb mounds in Ireland 5,500 years ago. It just like boggles my mind that before they were Europeans as we know them, there were other Europeans.
Yeah, that's true. Guys, I'm afraid that I have to um, head off. But it was great to chatting with you guys, and congratulations again, Justin, on the 300K and birthday and and the third birthday of the channel. Obviously, I
Yeah.
hope that there are going to be many more and that you will not be substituted by an AI or that we will adapt and collaborate rather.
You can come visit me at my homestead in the northern part of Michigan if that happens.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, thank you, Angela, and I look forward to next week losing more subscribers by talking about Adorno.
Yeah. We will have another fight on
About Adorno.
It's always fun. Yeah, because haven't you realized, Philip, that Justin and I disagree on basically everything?
That's not true.
That's
Well,
fun.
90% of things. Yeah, because we started having a live stream commentary on Adorno's thesis against the occult. And Justin is in agreement with Adorno, and I'm in disagreement with Adorno. So but I don't say that as a bad thing, Justin. I mean, I like the fact, it's fun to have a friend to have a banter with.
Yeah, I mean, also I just think that anyone who thinks enough is going to disagree with everyone else because everyone is a unique person.
Mm.
Any sufficiently thoughtful person inherently disagrees with everyone else.
Hmm.
Does that? I mean, doesn't that seem right? That it would be impossible that if you're sufficiently thoughtful to agree with other people?
It depends. I think that, well, you have your own uniqueness and your own unique beliefs, but there are certain grounds. I'd say that there are sort of levels of thinking and opinions and beliefs that you have. So there are some root ideas, and you can agree or disagree with those ones. And then you have sort of the branches of the ideas. So when you get to the very detailed aspects of your thoughtfulness and your ideas, thinkings, and beliefs, then I would say I would agree with you that if you're thoughtful enough, you would definitely disagree with most people or with everybody. But if you look more at the roots, maybe it's probably easier to be in agreement with other people, even if you're thoughtful. So it really depends what are you focusing on when you're trying to gather whether you are in agreement or not with somebody else.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, but I just wonder, like, if you're sufficiently thoughtful, I imagine even among, I don't know, foundationalists, most foundationalists are going to disagree with each other. Are there really
Do you
foundationalists
think,
still
or
left?
just
What do you say, Philip?
do you mean they will disagree about everything, or just that they will have
Yeah.
disagreements?
No, not that they disagree about everything. That seems also highly unlikely. But like just that any sufficiently thoughtful person will ultimately be they're going to have to disagree with most other people about many things.
Sure.
Just
Mm.
like just because of the idiosyncrasies of being individuals. But again, it's like this is a thing that Zevi and I talk about. That's one of the many tools we get from our tradition is the idea of machlokas l'shem shemayim, that disagreement for the sake of heaven. That there's a famous part of the Talmud where the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai were arguing because they're always arguing. They never agree. They even slaughtered each other once. And it was once. It was a bad day. And they were arguing, and then the sky broke open. They were literally on top of their respective institutions, screaming at each other. And the sky broke open, and God said, "Elu ve'elu, both of you guys are right, right?
Mm.
That whoever disagrees for the sake of heaven will be rewarded in heaven." And there's the idea that, like, I love the idea of disagreeing with people, even like really disagreeing with people, because I'm never disagreeing for the sake of disagreeing. I'm disagreeing for the sake of building a deeper relationship.
Yeah.
And and it's amazing how superficial things are when you agree, because when you agree, things never have to get deeper. But when you disagree, now you have to plunge down into the depths of, like, what in the hell? Why do you think that? So
Yeah.
I find disagreement to be, it's like, it's a weird thing we associate disagreeing with disrespectfulness, which is a very unfortunate.
No.
Like, I think culturally we do. Like, there's sort of like an
Mm.
idea that you should agree with people and be agreeable, things like that.
Yeah, according to Jordan Peterson, women are more agreeable, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson. I knew he would make it on here one day.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that I love the idea of I mean, what is it? Modeling disagreement for the sake of heaven. Modeling disagreement that's
Yeah.
fruitful and
Yeah,
like
I agree with
respectful and
that.
kind. And
Good friends that I gravely disagree with on all kinds of topics, political, whatever. And the conversations I have with those people are often some of the best conversations I have. And we
Yeah.
often have very deep friendships too, despite the fact that we disagree.
yeah, that's why I
Mhm.
like high school friends, because high school friends are people that've been there with you forever, and you get like, oh yeah, you grow apart and you like still respect each other. I don't know, I like that.
Mm.
But
Anyway, guys, I'm gonna love you and leave you, and it will be fun to meet up in Stockholm. But before that, we have our fantastic disagreement next week on
yeah,
Adorno.
get to slam into some more Adorno. All right, Angela, it was good to see you. Thank you for taking the time to hang out, and yeah, looking forward to talking with you about Adorno. And I had some idea that we should work on something together, but I can't. Oh yeah, the Isabella Cortesi thing. We should talk about that
Yeah,
when you get
yeah, yeah.
time.
Yeah, let's meet up before the Adorno live stream so that we can chat about that.
Okay, yep, because I'd love to do an episode on her soon. So
Mhm.
groovy. Okay, it was good to see
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye. See you. Have a great evening.
Talk to you soon.
And there was one.
Yes. I should probably wrap up soon too.
Yeah,
because
I
I'm
have
getting
to.
tired.
I have to too. Actually, I'm gonna my kids are coming home soon. Um, but
What are your thoughts about the milestone and everything that you've achieved? How does it feel?
yeah, it does. It feels great. I mean, it's a weird. I mean, it's a strange thing that a channel that's so niche could get this many subscribers. I mean, um, you just there's a question of just like who out there is watching this. And of course, the wonderful folks in the chat. Um, like the people that support the channel. But yeah, I'm really happy that it's working. And part of the reason why it's just that people often forget that YouTube is a search engine, and it's the second biggest search engine, and for some demographics, especially people below the age of 25, it's the biggest search engine. And Philip, religion, especially Islam, especially esotericism, are just terribly misrepresented. And I really do feel like we're doing important work by basically feeding the search engine so that when people go to look for Al Ghazali or whatever Gnosticism or whatever, that they can get access to reliable information. And I think that the success of our channels, and your channel has been very, very successful, and I'm very, very proud of how successful your channel has been and just the work that you do. That there's a real craving for people to get access to this information that's reliable, and the fact that our channels have grown in the rate and that they have, I think is just proof of the idea that people want extra institutional, reliable information. And I'm just really honored and humbled by the fact that people trust me, and that I've been able to build that trust, and build that trust in a way that God willing, I'll sustain, and I'll work hard to do it. But so in that way, I feel really great about it, because it means that there was a need for that kind of reliable information, and that if I can provide it, then I'm really honored and grateful to be able to do that. So, and again, that's why I really love what you do, not just on your general religion stuff, but really specifically on the Islam stuff. I mean, Islamophobia is a real nasty thing in our society, and like most phobias, they're grounded in ignorance.
Yes.
And the way that our social phobias, right, they're grounded in ignorance, and that you do the work, of filling the gaps and really showing that Islam is a really complicated, amazing thing, and Sufism is a really complicated, amazing thing. I really also commend you for that work, and I think your success is also the result of a need for people to get access to this information. And the fact that we can do it in an accessible way is really great.
Thanks, man. And the same can be said about occultism or esoterica, right? It's a lot of that stuff is so terribly represented online and elsewhere, right? And so I think what you're doing is just so incredibly valuable and important. So thank you for everything that you do.
Man, I appreciate it. And also I think another part of this that's just really, really great is just that we built this community.
Yeah.
That we have Angela and Philip and Dan and other people, that we've built up a sort of an intellectual community. And that's another part of why I think I'm really excited about what we're doing, is that learning doesn't happen in a vacuum. And what we do can be very lonely. I think this is a thing that we talk about in private, but I imagine people can see it, that it's quite a lonely task. It can be a lonely task, and that we've built up a community is really it's really amazing. It's hard to the world's very atomizing. It's hard to build community, and the fact that we've worked at doing it, and I think it's really great it's a real testament to what's possible on these platforms, that they're not just sort of like mindless content. It really is trying to put out the best thing out there, and really trying, not that I'm opposed to mindless content. Trust me, I love my share of mindless content. But to put this stuff out there and really build a community around it, it's just really, really great. Also, let me just say, just so I don't neglect people, but I've seen the super chats and things come in, and super thanks. Gabriel, hey buddy. Gabriel's the great gentleman behind Anathema Books, some of the most beautiful books in the occult world being published these days.
Oh, wow.
I appreciate that. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for everyone who's been putting those super chats in and the super questions. I'll go back through them and try to answer them privately if I can. But I'm sorry if I've missed your questions. But we'll have I'll try to preserve them for the next live stream Q&A, which will be more Q&A-ish, and not me ranting about how the academic institutions need to be sublated. Let's go full on Hegel, man. Get on my Hegel soapbox.
It's fun to see you and Angela argue about stuff.
It's right, because there's actually not a lot of light between us in many ways. But yeah, it is good to have a thought partner in that way. Yeah. But Philip, your channel's like what, north of 500,000, right? Is that?
Yeah, I think it's 520 now or something.
That's
I
amazing.
should also do one of these live streams.
Yeah, you should do one. You should celebrate, man. It's 500 is just it's a huge number and really rapid growth, and it's just again a real testament to the quality work you do, but also the need for it. Which that's those two things went. That's a thing. Yeah, it's amazing. What do you have? What do you have upcoming? If I don't mind asking, if you don't mind telling.
There's the sort of documentary thing coming out this weekend about Tunisia, which is very exciting. It's a different format than what I usually do, which was a challenge, but also a lot of fun to try some new things. I've been working on a video about Kashmir Shaivism for a long time. The script has taken a really long time for that, because it's, well, that could be said for all of these things, but it's such a vast and complicated topic. And as always, I want to do it justice. And so I've spent a lot of time researching before putting it on the page. But I finished it just a few days ago, I think. Well, I'll probably go and add some stuff. But that should be coming out in the coming weeks. Because I was just in Spain, I've also started writing something about, well, basically just mysticism in Al-Andalus. So the early Sufis or mystics from that region. So those are the ones that are sort of coming out soon.
Awesome. Yeah, I've really been, some behind the scenes. I've seen some behind the scenes pictures of you traveling. Made me super jealous. Yeah, Spain's a country I've always wanted to spend more time in. The only time I've been to Spain was to do the Entierro, the running of the bulls, and I managed to crack 2 or 3 ribs. I'm not actually sure how many I managed to break doing the running of the bulls. So I was kind of infirm while I was on the second half of the time I was there. So
you actually did?
Oh yeah. Me and my friends. I was wrapping up my degree in Amsterdam, and a bunch of my friends several of my friends from the States came over, and we decided to go do it. And I managed to bust up some ribs, so that was not so fun. But I don't know. But yeah, I'd love to get over to Spain and do some sightseeing and Andalusia and I'd love to do that. And also do some, like, again, the Spanish Civil War looms large in my mind. So I should go do some Spanish Civil War. Tourism's not the right. I really hate the word tourism when you talk about a human tragedy, but sightseeing is not the right word either. Pilgrimage, I don't know.
Kind of.
Yeah, something. I don't know what the right word is, but yeah, there's also a class that I dreamed to do in my head, but I would love to do a class on Kabbalah that begins in Spain, like actually on the ground in Spain, learning Kabbalah, where it developed, in the places it developed, and then going over to Israel and then finishing the class in Safed and where it actually matured, and teaching it on the ground in the places, like in the actual graveyards, in the actual like synagogues, and like there's a huge part of me that wants to do that, because I think that there's something about the land, I don't know, and like being there, smelling it, being like this is the fountain Moshe DeLeon was looking at when he first described the Sfirot as water pouring down a fountain. Like he was looking at that fountain. And like read that section of the Zohar. I think it would be just immersive learning to me is such an important part of of learning, and I would love to be able to do that, like an actual Kabbalah class on the ground in Spain and in Israel.
It was really cool just being in so I was in Seville for the most part when I was there, and so that's a city where, you know, people like Ibn Arabi spent the first half of his life basically. And so one of the most powerful experiences was because the actual city, there are like, there's a courtyard from the old mosque, for example, so there are those things left from the Islamic era, but a lot of it is, of course, was demolished, and it's mostly a modern city. But we also went outside the city to the old Roman ruins there, and just saw sort of the countryside, and that was a really powerful thing, because then I realized, Ibn Arabi, for example, he mentions these hills outside of Seville in some of his autobiographical works, and while of course they don't look exactly the same, the mountains and the hills that I'm looking at are the exact same mountains that he would have seen, and the plants around me are the same kind of plants that he would have encountered. So those kinds of experiences are really powerful. It's almost like you get to know those people on a more personal level almost.
Yeah, I agree. You can kind of see through their eyes. No, I totally agree. I think that, I mean, I'm not a mystically inclined person, but there is something about like being in the place that puts you, that allows you to be more in the mindset, to be more, because, as much as we think of the mystics as being sort of disembodied, they were radically embodied, and their embodiment is all over these texts. And to be able to put your body where their body was, I think is a very can be a very powerful thing for experiencing the texts as real, as not just sort of literature, but as real in that way. I don't know. I think that's very powerful, and I think that it gets, again, it's the way that we think of like academia can be very cerebral, right? And I think that that's and of course, I'm not here to sound like an anti-intellectual or something, but that purely cerebral way of consuming information, I think, is very actually limited. But yeah, I don't know. Dream class. Maybe one day I can crowdfund it or something, or do a Kickstarter and have everyone come to Spain and learn about Kabbalah. That would be cool. I don't know. It's an idea. It would
certainly add to the experience, I think, to be there for those reasons.
Yeah, I think it'd be a neat sort of immersive learning situation. But all right, Philip. Well, I guess I'll let you go. I know you said you had to get going, and it's probably getting late there, and I need to go as well. But it's great to see you. I haven't seen you, and I feel like I haven't seen you in a while since you've been traveling. So it's great to see you.
Too long. It's nice to catch up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe behind the scenes we can do a little bit more chatting. So, well, folks, I just want to say, as we start to wrap up, we've been on for about an hour and a half. I guess I'll just conclude by saying what is obvious, or it should be obvious. I'm just really deeply thankful for everyone who supports this channel, for everyone who supports all these channels, right? Whether you're liking, subscribing, supporting via Patreon, supporting by being just sharing stuff. I mean, you guys make what we do possible. You guys are sort of the crowd that makes everything possible. And I just want to express my just deep and heartfelt thanks to all of you for making these channels possible, for helping to build this community and support us and the work that we do. We love to do this work. It matters to us a great deal, and moreover than just the doing the work, also just being in a community of folks who want to produce content around education, but also folks who want to absorb it. And I don't know, I guess I can say for myself, and hopefully I'm speaking for Philip and other folks too, when I say that we're eternally grateful for the audience that we have. It's a huge thing. So thank you so much. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to jump off. Doing an episode next week on the books of Yu, Jeu. So they're interesting because from a Gnostic point of view, they're the most magic-y of the Gnostic books. And so if you like Gnosticism and you like magic, which I can't imagine if you like those two things, if you don't like those two things, you're probably in the wrong place. But if you like magic, you like Gnostic-y stuff, you like mystical ascent literature, you're going to get all of those and the books of you. And so I'll be working on those for next week. But other than that, folks, I'll see folks next week, at least for Angela and I to disagree about Adorno. And other than that, I'll see folks later. Philip, thank you for taking the time to come on and hang out and celebrate a little milestone.
It was a pleasure. So nice to spend some time with you and to celebrate this incredibly wonderful achievement.
Thanks, man. All right, folks. I'll see folks in a week or so, if not before. But thank you very much. Thank you very much. And everyone take care of themselves. Take it easy.